interrupt our regular programming to bring you a developing story. Reporting live from downtown, we have just received breaking news about a critical situation unfolding at City Hall. At approximately 6:30 p.m., an unidentified individual entered City Hall and announced that they planted a bomb within the building. The suspect entered City Hall during late business hours and managed to secure a small group of employees and officials as hostages. According to police sources, the suspect has made specific demands, though the nature of these demands has not yet been disclosed to the public. At this moment, the suspect's identity and motive remain unclear. Law enforcement is working to gather more information and will release details as they become available.
What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're gonna jump in with some Marvel Future Fight content. I know I've been away for a while doing some first Descendant. I totally recorded videos and just forgot to post them. We're just gonna skip past that, and we're gonna get on to what's coming in the patch, Rolling Wave patch tonight. So Dr. Doom, God Emperor Doom is here. You can see the T4 in the background, so it's gonna be a tier 4 Dr. Doom. You knew that, right? No way for him to show up and not make that impact. So let's take a look at these patch details and get into it, so that way we can see exactly whether or not this is going to be a banger or if this is going to be another fail like the Fantastic Four. So first up is we're going to take a look at Victorious, because they seem to think she was a new character in the sneak peek, which was weird as hell. Even her sneak peek information where they were talking about her trying to take over Latveria didn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. She is Dr. Doom's personal guard, always has been, and has always served at the pleasure of Doom. Not sure who did the sneak peek details and the information for Victorious, but major fail there, guys. Major fail. But then you kind of knocked it out the park with the Dr. Doom sneak peek, which was, you know, it was sneak peek for us there. So let's take a look at Victorious and see what the update basically looks like for her. So she did both these characters got a long ways to go because it's been a while since they've been updated, but let's take a look inside here. So excuse me. So first up, we get her leadership skill. It is increased as I thought it was going to be. So instead of getting the decreased basic damage here, that is basically removed from Dr. Doom's, from Victorious. It's basically placed onto Dr. Doom. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute, but decreased basic damage is going to be removed from the leadership, and that increased buff is going to be boosted from 25 to 65%. And then we get the increase all basic attacks by 35%, still there. The uniform effect, she's going to have super armor, increase all basic defenses by 30%, and decrease the basic damage received by 30%. So good things there, right? I expected the 65-70% increase for Dr. Doom support. Why would you have a character trying to take over Latveria but support Dr. Doom? Get it together, guys. Get it together. Anyways. So next up we're gonna have is her Spear of Latveria skill. Is the original passive was Latverian Champion. You can see here it was a 30% increase of HP. That's going to be boosted to all allies for a 40% increase of HP, and then she's going to get an additional buff to that for applies to self, 20% chance to penetrate with super armor, barrier shield, all damage, immune, invincible effect, and it's going to increase the guaranteed crit rate by 30%. So we've seen that before, so that looks really good. The other skill, Last Resort, her passive skill, that's going to change as well. So it's going to be called Fight for Country, and it's going to have Incapacitation, which removes the active buff from targets. We're going to have Paralysis on that skill. We're going to have Barrier for 10 times, and Energy for energy damage 60% of her HP. So she's going to be another interesting build type character with her energy of HP, because all her stuff is going to look like Hulk, who is going to be built out on HP as well. So pay attention to that, because you're going to have to equip your you're gonna have to equip your artifacts or your goddamn, I'm all over the place today. You're gonna have to you're going to have to equip your Uru differently. Instead of putting energy attack, doubling up, you're going to want to put more HP inside of this Uru slot. And you want to be more focused on HP, so that way she's getting the most gains from her energy attack is going to be based off of HP. So just pay attention to that. All right, so next, let's get into her first skill. Like I said, way strong to go. She keeps the stun for 3 seconds. Energy damage is going to be 80% of her HP. The additional 260% energy damage there, so major boost. You're not going to play into the one skill that much anyways. Her second skill is going to be called Tip of the Spear. This is going to have silence, incapacitation, paralysis, and then only applying to herself. 100% chance to grant all damage immunity. Energy damage is going to be 75% of her HP, and she gets an additional 178 energy damage on top of that. Next up, we get Latverian Revolution. It's going to apply to all allies. It increases all basic attacks plus 60%, all basic defenses plus 60%, all speeds by 20% per HP, and the energy damage is going to be 55% of HP, an additional 107 energy damage. So this is going to be interesting because you notice that it says it applies to all allies. So it's a tag in, tag out skill, which is even more support to Dr. Doom, because essentially you can have her in here at the leadership, and then basically, or not even at the leadership and support, and then you can basically activate the 3 skill, tag her out, and then tag Doom in, and then receive that increase all basic attacks, all basic defenses as well. Battle Spear is going to be the next skill. So applies to enemies, stun, decrease all basic defenses, which stacks up to 50%, and then applying to herself, she's going to have the recover 15% of HP, and then the invincible for 5 seconds, and 100% increase of max HP on it. So you can see it here was 50%, so that's a major increase there. And then the energy damage is going to be 30% of HP, an additional 107 energy damage. So the difference between 50 and 100 is double, and that's a big difference. You can see why you're going to want to build into her. So instead of getting the shield barrier and the shield barrier here, which who cares about the shield being equal to 10%? You really want that that recovery effect. You really want that invincible effect instead of having that. So now she gets an additional 5th skill. Finally, she's not a 4 skill character. It was a unique thing when they did it, but I think having a tier 3 and then only having 4 skills gonna make it a lot harder for you to get to that tier 3. So it's gonna be called Fight for. Excuse me. No. She's still keeping, her 5th skill, her passive, that Fight for Country. I fucked that up. Her Fight for Country skill is going to be her second passive, is going to be her new skill. So this passive skill is going to, the last resort skill, because she had the 2 passives, is going to be changed into a skill. My bad. Whatever. You guys get it. I don't think a whole lot of people are that excited about Victorious in the first damn place, but it is what it is. Like, nobody's like writing home to be like, hey, Victorious is what I need from this update. Trust me, especially at a tier 3, right? So this is going to be her tier 3 animation aside here. Not a whole lot to write home about. It has bleed, decreases recovery rate by 50%, stun, silence, fracture, has invincible for 7 seconds, increases basic damage by 20% for 1 attack, and then the energy damage is 110% of HP with an additional 15 energy damage. Might as well not give it any additional energy damage at all if you're just going to go 15 on it. So I don't think a whole lot of people are going to necessarily like be excited about Victorious in here. You guys know how I feel about tier 3 characters. It's not exactly like the spiciest thing for updates anymore when you're getting T4s, because you can't really utilize these characters in game. They're trying to make it really fun for T3s inside Otherworld battle. However, all the debuffs for characters that basically come, like if we just basically touch a character inside Otherworld battle at this point, those characters are basically debuffed. So the same thing is going to probably happen to Dr. Doom. So but let's take a look at Dr. Doom, who is now going to be utilizing his God Emperor Doom uniform. We'll have to see what take they have on it, but yeah, we'll have to wait to see what that looks like. They still haven't released it yet. So finally, after years, we're finally going to get an update for Dr. Doom. Jesus. You can see this character has only had this uniform, and that was it. The 3099 uniform, that's all we got. The uniform effect that was on it was pretty interesting at the time. Let's see what they have changed for it now. So he's still gonna increase the chain hit damage by 15%. So that's still the same, not any difference. We're gonna get decreased damage received from reflected attacks by 60%. So that's still the same that was in there before on the 3099 uniform. He also has the effect reflect all attacks. So that's good. So you can see automatically that the character is just pretty much leaning into PvP still. And then we get the decreased basic damage received by 40%, which stays the same. So essentially what they're doing for the uniform, and this is the weird part, is they're removing the ignore targets dodge rate by 50%. It's being removed from the uniform and being placed into his skills. When you get something like that where it's that big, because this is a huge thing here, to have the ignore target dodge rates by 50% be removed from the uniform, you kind of invalidate the uniform, because most of what I'm purchasing in uniform should be around the uniform effect. But let's take a look at the skills, and then you guys can see what we're stacking up against. But we're off to a bad start, right? Essentially. So let's go. So next up we have his first passive skill, Born Ruler. So 55% all damage immune on the skill is it's always there. Super armor, 50% increased basic skill damage, 3540. So no change to passive whatsoever. No change to his passive, no change to his leadership. So secondary passive is going to stay there. Remove all debuffs, and then the Doombot decoy after Doombot, the second is still the same. So no changes. Okay, so we're still not going well. These skills are going to have to be monumental for it to be working out. So first skill is going to be called now Emperor's Fist. So we have Burn, which deals 50% damage, 50% fire damage on that skill instead of the 30%. The stun is going to get increased to 3 seconds. He gains silence for 3 seconds, fracture for 7 seconds, incapacitation, which removes active buff from the target, and then the energy damage is going to be 70% of energy attack and an additional 1813 energy damage. So a boost here, but a massive nerf in terms of the energy damage coming down to 70%. That's more than half. It's like 60% of the attack basically, being inside there. There's a lot. We have to see how that plays out. Like I said, you don't really play into your first skills that very much, but I have a feeling that Doom is going to have one of those Doctor Strange-esque hits. So anyway, so we go into his second skill, which has the counter attack. We get the burn on this one for 50% of fire damage. We get the stun for 3 seconds, the fracture for 7 seconds. We lose the incapacitation. That's moved to the first skill, and we get the we applies to self. We get the 100% chance to grant all damage immunity. We get the energy damage is 100% of energy attack, and additional 1813 energy damage on his skill. So essentially, when we're looking at this one, it's like the paralysis is helping you to ignore the immunity. So you're getting somewhat like stun and paralysis on there. And so like this kind of segues into ABX, Alliance Battle Extreme and stuff like that a little bit. But we get the additional effects of the 100% chance to grant all damage immunity, which is basically taking us into PvP territory again, right? Along with the counter attack skill as well. Timing, guys, we'll have to see how it works. Next skill is going to be called Emperor's Magic. So we're going to get the stun for 3 seconds. We're going to get the silence. We're going to decrease all basic defenses for up to 65% on this one now, and then we get the accumulation skill on this way so as well. So we get the 1.2% accumulation on a skill, and then that's about it. Now I'm interested because this new one doesn't say that as a VPAD skill, so we're losing out on a VPAD skill with this uniform as well. So no VPAD skill, it's gone. So his accumulation pure damage up to 15% of max HP. That's going from the way that working as well, because the way this read is accumulates 10% of pure damage when attacking, and that's it. So unless this is moved to someplace else, the increase all basic attacks by 15% is going to be reduced to 10% essentially is the way that's working out. Like, I'm not so sure about this uniform. Like, I'm excited about God Emperor Doom, but this ain't reading so well right now. So let's take a look at this. So his next skill is going to be called Emperor's Swarm. So we get the burn again for 50% fire damage. We get the invincible for 5 seconds. Increase all basic attacks by 45%, which is already there for 8 seconds. And then we get the energy damage is 90% of energy attack and an additional 140. So this essentially almost a copy and paste, except for the fact that we lose out on a stun, we lose out on a paralysis. Those are no longer here. So somewhat of a nerf as well, because it's pretty much the same. There's going to be a lot left on the table here to basically look at the skill kits. This is why I always say, like, the paper is not necessarily what it is, but this anyways. So next up we go to Tyranny. Is going to be his 5th skill. It applies to enemies. We have the incapacitation on this skill, the paralysis, the decrease all basic defenses up to 65% on this skill as well. Hold up, I didn't think I would see this. He's recovering 40% of HP on this skill. Somebody help me make sense of that. So we're getting a nerf on his 5th skill for the recovery effect, because we're going from 50% to 40%. All right. I don't know what they're cooking. Okay. I don't know what they're cooking, but anyways, so the recovery is 40% HP. We get to increase all basic attacks and defenses by 60, all speed by 1, and the crit rate by 30%. The energy damage is 90% of energy attack, and the additional damage is 121. So I know people are not going to like to see that, where we're getting a reduction in the recovery effect. Why not just leave it the same? We know where the answer is going to be. I hate this. So, and again, the reason why we didn't need tier 4s. So that 10, I want to show you this on screen. Essentially what they did is the 10% of the HP is removed from out of the base kit and brought over into the tier 4 for recovers of 15% HP. You're taking skills that could have just been part of the standard kit and putting them into the tier 4. This goes to what I keep saying about the game in general and how it's worsening because of the monetization efforts that they're adding to the game, where essentially we're just breaking out kits of things that we would have normally have just gotten, and now they're being distributed into other areas to justify them. So here we get the recovery of 15% HP, which justifies the reduction from the 50 to the 40%. And so now it doesn't really look like that's necessarily part of the kit, even though, you know, the tier 4, because we just removed that because we would have gotten the 10-15% in another skill there. So now we just increase all basic attack is what we get from there for the 40%. And then we get the energy increases by 20% every 1 second up to 60%. So realistically, it's going to increase. This lasts for 7 seconds. So it's going to increase within the first 3 stages. In the last 4 seconds, you're going to have full ability of there. We've seen this. Now this is becoming like copy paste kind of tier 4 material stuff for us. But like literally, it's like the nerf. I don't understand the uniforms anymore, because realistically these are optimizations of characters that most games in general just do for you, and these are not necessarily like whatever. You guys get where I'm going with that. Anyways, I'm not really feeling that. So we do get 2 new artifacts as well. We get the we get Dr. Doom's Hero Destroyer, basically real basic inside here. Increases the basic damage dealt to superhero and supervillain faction by 20%. And then we get Latverian Loyalist, which applies to universal allies, ignore targets dodge rates by 15%, and then increases all... You can't make this shit up, man. You just can't. Sorry for the language. You really can't make this up. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. So essentially, remember when I went into the uniform effect and I was like, his ignore target's dodge rate was removed from his uniform and it's not there. I was expecting to see that ignore target's dodge rate in his kit. And, you know, like, especially because of the fact that, you know, essentially you're looking at that ignore targets dodge rate is 50% of his previous uniform. I mean, that's a lot. You're talking about 50% that you can see on that passive. So let's go back to this one right here, on a uniform effect anyways, excuse me. So on his uniform inside the 3099 uniform, that's a huge thing to have that 50% passive, that ignore targets rate by 50%, especially in a PvP character. So it's on, you get it on his tier 3 skill and his ultimate, right, where it's 70% of what's there inside of his tier 3. So look at it here, but it was already there. So it's not like a massive change and a massive improvement. These things are still basically still the same thing. But the big deal is that when you look at all the rest of his skill, that 50% ignore targets dodge rate is not inside the kit anymore. And so that's a nerf to the character because it's not part of his uniform effect. And what they've essentially done is move that to you can't make this shit up. They essentially moved that to Victoria's her kit. So now the passive, you know, the artifact inside there. So now they're selling you pieces of a uniform that you would have previously got and basically put it in this other characters, which you call at a nerfed rate. So now I get the 15% instead of the 50% and the 70% that was there. Because if you look at Doom's uniform, his passive, his ultimate skill already had the ignore targets dodge rate 70%. His uniform had the ignore targets 7. So unless they wrote this wrong on the details, we're losing out on 50% of ignore targets dodge rate that is happening from the uniform effect. Like, make it make sense. Like, I don't understand like the neutering of characters, and we're just spread loading where the characters are basically getting their abilities from, so that way we can monetize as much as possible and sell you on all of the other various things, like, you know, the multiverse saga and those updates from the little cards and shit that you have to do. So it's like, whatever. Okay. So other than that, there's not a whole lot going on in the update. They made some changes to fix the autoplay progression inside stage 4.1 of the story missions for Dimensional Clash. 4.1, I haven't noticed them because I haven't really been playing that much story missions as of late. To be honest with you, I'm gonna have to wait to see on paper. On paper, this doesn't look good to me. But we'll have to see, because I really don't know. We'll have to see. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be around for the update. It's going to be a rolling update in waves, so you should start seeing those changes around 8 o'clock Pacific time, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this in the comment section below. I've been having fun playing a lot of games, and unfortunately, I'm sorry for falling behind in the videos. I will catch up and make sure that I'm on top of this a little bit more, but we'll have to see. This Fantastic Four update has just not been it for me. Until next time, guys. Peace.